How you
Coach,
doing?
how we doing today, sir?
Holding up.
Trying to get through all this weather, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not
Try,
fun.
try to fight through it. Can't decide if it wants to be winter or spring right now outside. But, Coach, no doubt I want to talk to you first and foremost about this Myrtle trip. But before we get to that, since it is your first time on the show, we always have to start off with a sort of meet the team segment. So for
Okay.
all the viewers that are getting their first chance to meet the South Range baseball team, I want to give you the chance to highlight your seasoned players and some new players that have kind of bursted onto the scene this year for you.
I'm very pleased with our seniors this year. I really feel like they've done a very good job for us, kind of stepping up, filling some key roles. A lot of them are returning starters. They've done a wonderful job. Stevie Rowan, Michael Markulin, Dylan Dominguez, Corey Pennick, Aiden English, Logan Cormell. I'm trying to think, just make sure I'm not leaving anybody out. Those seniors have done a great job. And then, we returned 8 starters from last year. Juniors Billy Skripak, junior Shane Lindstrom. And then you kind of add some newcomers there. Tyson Terajak, as a freshman, has thrown pretty well for us this year. He's been a great asset to have on the mound.
Let's just talk about some of these athletes too that are featured on this team that play multiple sports too, and the success they experience.
And apologize, Logan Baxter as well is really solidified the shortstop. One of the best shortstops I think I've coached. I think when it's said and done, that'll be the case. But sorry to interrupt.
No, absolutely not, Coach. And I mean, we want to give a shout out to all those players too, because you guys have a lot of talent that is housed over there in South Range. There's no doubt, athletes wise, and they've experienced a lot of success in other sports, whether it be football, state champions, and wrestling too. Talk to me about just the success that a lot of these athletes have, then the name guys that are playing multiple sports, and how influential that is, being guys that experience success in other sports being brought into this team.
It's huge. I think it builds a complete athlete. You can argue playing multiple sports definitely makes you a better athlete. And each sport kind of has its own pressures, I guess, if you will. They're a little bit different in nature. And I just think that, you take a senior 3-sport athlete, let's say, that's been through football, that's or soccer, or it's been through basketball, it's been through wrestling. I just think they handle pressure very well. They carry themselves with a maturity, and they develop leadership qualities. They might not be your major leader on your baseball team, but maybe they were a captain on the football team. They were a captain of a wrestling team, basketball team, and then they're able to to add to the dynamic now come spring season on the baseball team. And I will say too, from a wrestling standpoint, when you're by yourself out on the mat, and nobody's there to bail you out, you have to bail yourself out. It's very similar to being in the batter's box or on the mound.
Yeah, no doubt. And looking at these athletes too, there's no doubt that South Range has had a long lineage of just having success within their sports too. So looking back at this 2018 team that was able to do that, and you talk about the leadership qualities that you're seeing in players now, what are some players from that team that you think were helpful in kind of developing and being a huge influence on the players that are now leading your team that you see now here in 2022?
Jacob Gehring obviously comes to mind. He was a freshman that year, so he was around, following, 4 years, and, was around last year, obviously, and, had, I guess, our freshmen that are sophomores now had a direct influence on them. And, he's been around when he was in town. He stopped in a few times, and, always glad to see him when he can make it. But, as you know, and I'm sure you're aware, it's, you're playing Division I sports. It's very time consuming, and, the return visits are few and far between. But I've kept in contact with him, kept in touch, and, he still keeps in touch with some of the guys on the team. Trey Pancake, influential, Brandon Mikos, some of our major guys. They weren't on the 18 team, but, arrived following that. And, we we had a good run last year as well, making it to the regional final. And, those guys definitely have an influence on this group this year.
There's no doubt too. And we all know kind of making that state title run, especially in this sport, it takes a little bit of luck and a whole lot of skill to make that kind of run because it's a fickle sport. But kind of talking about that and kind of getting this interview question out of the way, it feels like you guys are right on track to make that run again, that similar run. But of course, you need some things to go the right way. How are your feelings as far as expectations for this team about midway through this season now and looking forward?
I'm pleased overall with how we're playing. We're kind of working on the small things right now, which is good. The group is kind of, for the most part, played together for a full season last year. Like I said, returning the starters that we've returned. So there's continuity there on the field defensively. Offensively, I think we're doing a great job right now, but there's an ebb and flow to that, and I hope we continue on that trend. But you just never know how things are going to play out. Like you said, it's a fickle sport, fickle game. But we were expecting to contend for the league title, and I think we've put ourselves in position to do so. Still got a big league slate ahead. And, I addressed the guys last night and basically said with, kind of the league games starting to back up against one another, it's basically going to have to be a full pitching staff effort. To be able to ride 1, 2, 3 kids through league play, we're just simply not going to be able to do that right now with, we may have three straight league games, where you may have to go rely on 5, 6 arms to get you through those games. So the guys are ready. I think the guys are ready. The guys are up to the challenge.
Before we look ahead with that schedule a little bit more, I mean, let's recap this Myrtle trip too. First, let's just talk about the experiences and some fun stories from it as well. But just talk to me about how important this trip is, kind of at the midpoint towards the beginning of the season, as far as just bringing that team together.
It's ideal early on for a few reasons. Weather, obviously, and you can see that when you look outside your window. To be able to go down south early and get games in, you're basically guaranteed those games. And also to develop, for the team to kind of grow together as teammates, to get to know each other. It serves its purpose much better towards the beginning half of the year than towards the latter half of the year. But the guys did a great job down there. We were successful 4-0. And just I think it was from a coach's standpoint. I know I had fun. It was a relief, I think, too, to get away, get out of the area, and get into some nice weather. And I think the boys really had a lot of fun.
And talking about this team too, and I mean, just looking at the success that you were able to experience down there, you guys aren't the only team locally that has gone down to Myrtle or gone down to Tennessee or what have you for a spring break and have had success elsewhere. What do you think that speaks to on the baseball and softball level talent? We'll talk baseball, obviously, with your realm, but what do you think that speaks on the baseball level talent that we see on this half of the states too, in this state of Ohio?
There's talent, and I think kids are just with each year they're just more and more and more talented. I think back when I played, and just take it from the pitching standpoint. There were a few hard throwers. There were always a couple names that could run it up there pretty good, but it just seems like more and more and more kids are throwing harder. That top threshold is now raised in terms of velocity. Kids have, when I played, fastball, curveball. Some kids could throw a changeup, some kids couldn't. I mean, now you got some kids that feature 4 different pitches, and they just don't throw 4 different pitches. They can command them as well. So I think the talent pool is deeper as the years have gone by, and I think this area, maybe due to the weather, and we're obviously a football driven area as well. Compared comparing us to, let's say, Cincinnati, Southern Ohio, where, down in Cincinnati, baseball is really, really big. I think an area that's known mostly for football, I think there's an awful lot of baseball talent here as well.
Talking about the baseball talent, let's look at the schedule that you guys lined up now coming back from Myrtle Beach. No doubt this NE8 is always a tough one to get through and come out on top of. Talk about what it's going to take to get conference crown this season, as well as what it's just going to take to get through some of these non-conference games that you're excited about this season.
It's definitely going to be a team effort. We're definitely going to have to rely on, all three phases, if you will, the pitching, the defense, and the offense. And it's not just going to fall on the shoulders of, your one and your two that typically start league games. We're going to have to, potentially go down, and we may have a four running out there to throw in a league game. And again, some years that happens, most years it doesn't. And this is one of those years where, due to the weather, it's what you have to do to get the games in. But I think, and I said this at the beginning of the year, I think this is one of the deepest pitching staffs I've had. I think, we're good at the top as we have been, which, credit to those players who've worked hard and, done what they needed to do to get there. But I think depth, when you start looking at the threes, the fours, the fives, I just think we're deeper than we've been in past years, which bodes well in a year like this.
Coach, we know we always like to do the meet the team segment, but we also like to, with all of our area coaches, do a sort of meet the staff segment as well. And we know with all of the area coaches, they get all that kind of spotlight and the praise, but it's the staff and some other big names in the programs that truly help it out and make it what it is. So I want to give you that opportunity to sort of highlight your staff and put the spotlight on them now.
Coach Paul Munson, heads up my JV program, does an awful lot for our program as a whole. Very, very reliable, very dependent guy. Coach Don DeCellis, which has been with me as well for a number of years. We go back to in the old ITCL days, 2008-9. So kind of go back a while in time. Coach Dion Miller, who's come on a couple of years ago, has been a very valuable asset to us. And then, to have two former players, Coach Ryan Miller and Coach Dan Masinga, on staff as well. It's nice, to have former players come back to want to coach and to be a part of your program.
Coach, it's a question I like to ask all former players that turn out to be coaches. I want to give you that opportunity to coach yourself. And now in all the experiences and everything you've learned over the course of your baseball career, what would Coach Hanek tell player James Hanek?
Oh, boy. I wish I knew what I know now. I wish I knew then. I think that's I think most people would say that. Oh boy. Yeah, I wish I feel I would have the ability to relax more. I was always uptight and at times when I played to be honest here, if I'm in the confessional, so to speak, I got too nervous at times as a player. And, at times that was my undoing. And, if I could have just learned and had the ability to relax a little bit more, that's a trait, I guess, a characteristic I wish I had.
And looking at that too, and just from that experience, that flip that too to maybe a player now that comes up that has those kind of nerves, and we see it all the time too, especially going from that middle school jump to the varsity level in high school. What's some of that advice, and what are some of your ways to kind of combat that for players that kind of experience that jump?
We try to break. I guess you can break the game down to it's like the game within the game. I guess and I think sometimes when you're thinking too far ahead, you're thinking too big. It's easy to kind of get caught up and easy to kind of get lost. We We try a one pitch at a time mentality while we're on the mound. The ability to understand that errors happen defensively, and just to be able to forget about that previous play and look, kind of the mentality. I want the ball. I want it hit to me again, and I'm basically going to show you that I'll make the next play. It's probably what we practice. We do different things with our bullpen sessions where there's something that we're working on, whether we're trying to just be 1 ball, 2 strikes after 3 pitches. So we're just throwing bullpens in like 3 pitch sets with the focus on being ahead after 3 pitches, because it's just one of those statistics that correlates to success.
Coach, we obviously wish you the best of success as the season continues to grind down, as we look forward to seeing what the Raiders can do come tournament time, and as well as in that tough NE8 conference. And with little doubt, I'm sure we'll be talking to you again real soon.
All righty. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach.
Have a nice day.